if you would, read at least 12 verses of the Torah Parsha
I can do
so
that.
that no tribe is left behind.
All right. And we are on Parsha 26, Shemini, which means seven, correct? Huh? Oh, eight. I'm sorry, eight. And so we're going to start in chapter 9 and verse 1. And on the eighth day, it came to be that Moshe called Aharon and his sons and the elders of Israel. And he said to Aharon, take for yourself a young bull as a sin offering and a ram as a burnt offering, a perfect one, and bring them before Yahweh. And speak to the children of Israel, saying, take a male goat as a sin offering and a calf as a and a lamb, both a year old, perfect ones as a burnt offering, and a bull and a ram as a peace offering to slaughter before Yahweh, and a grain offering mixed with oil. For today Yahweh shall appear to you. And they took what Moshe commanded before the tent of appointment, and all the congregation drew near and stood before Yahweh. And Moshe said, this is the word which Yahweh commanded you to do, so that the esteem of Yahweh appears to you. And Moshe said to Aaron, go to the altar and prepare your sin offering and your burnt offering and make atonement for yourself and for the people. And make the offering of the people and make atonement for them as Yahweh has commanded. So Aaron came near the altar and slaughtered the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. And the sons of Aaron brought the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it in the horns of the altar and poured the blood at the base of the altar. And the fat and the kidneys and the appendage on the liver of the sin offering he burned on the altar, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And the flesh and the skin he burned with fire outside the camp. And he slaughtered the burnt offering, and the sons of Aaron presented it to him, the blood which he sprinkled on the altar all around.
Abba Yahweh, we love you and appreciate you, Father. We thank you so much for allowing us to be in your house today. Father, we ask that you would just touch our hearts and minds to receive your word today. Father, we ask that you would continue to show us your son Yahushua in your tabernacle and in your ordinances and your mishpatim. Father, we just thank you so much for all the things that you've done for us. And Father, we will continue to give you the glory and all the praise and all the honor in Yahushua's name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So uh, we're talking about Shemini, which again it means the eighth. Um, and there's something pretty special about this eighth day. There's a lot of different things uh, that were all supposed to take place on the eighth day. Um, from all different angles and all different perspectives. And we're going to talk about a few of those. But if you would, could you read the first verse over again?
And on the eighth day it came to be that Moshe called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel.
Okay, so it says here in the scriptures that on the eighth day, Moshe called Aharon and his sons, and so the priesthood, he called them, and this was the day that they were going to be consecrated, right? So they were going to be uh, consecrated, just a fancy word for set apart.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to be set aside for a particular reason. Now, the Levites, of course, when we all know this, but the Levites had a very, very special place um, in the camp and in Yahweh's service. So they were going to be set aside because they were very special. Um, so, what about some of these things that we're talking about? These different things that have to do with the eighth day. Well, let's go to Leviticus, and we'll be there next week, but let's talk about it just a little bit. Let's go to Leviticus 12 and 3 and see what that says.
Leviticus 12, verse 3. And in the eighth day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised.
All right. So let's jump over to Luke 1 and 59, please.
Luke 1, verse 59. And it came to pass that on the eighth day they came to circumcise the child, and they called him Zechariah after the name of his father.
So, circumcision, which was instituted very, very early, we see circumcision. It happened on the eighth day. All right. And then here in Luke, it talks about Zacharias, right? That he just according to what the Torah said, that he was also circumcised on the eighth day. It's a thing that we're supposed to do. But we know a lot of people get hung up on this stuff. But we know being circumcised does not save you. It doesn't buy you a one-way ticket into heaven. It doesn't do any of that. It just lets them know whose covenant you're under. That's it. That's all it does for you. Puts you under the Abrahamic covenant. Okay. That covenant is forever. And so it puts you under that covenant. And it's just an outward sign, but it does not save you. Okay. But the point is, they were doing it. Well, I guess Abraham was the first one to do it. So it puts you under that, they were doing it back then and they continued to do it. And we still continue to do it today. Um, and over the past few years, I've heard that, they've decided that there's a lot of health benefits for it and everything like that. So, the Father always wants what's best for us. And, so he instituted it. Let's also go again. We'll be looking at this next week, but, or maybe the week after, but let's go to Leviticus 14 and 10. The reason why we're going there in Leviticus is because this is where this stuff is talked about.
Leviticus 14 and 10. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 he lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, and 3/10 deals of fine flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil.
So who are we talking about here? This is for lepers, right? So in the 8th day, they were supposed to bring all of this stuff and do all of these, they were supposed to wash themselves and shave off all their hair. And, but up until this time, where are they at? They're all outside the camp, right? And that's not a good place to be. Sometimes he puts us there, and it's not really an enviable place to be. Just ask Miriam. So we're sometimes, he has to put us outside so that we can come back in. But anyway, it talks about what all he would have to do in the day of his cleansing on the 8th day in order to get that new beginning, as a now clean person, where before he was unclean. It's the same thing with circumcision. We're born, not under this covenant, but then we begin we have a new beginning, a new life under the Abrahamic covenant when we undergo that procedure. Some of us has it done on the 8th day, some of us a little bit after that. But the point is, when we realize that, again, it doesn't save you, okay? But when you realize that it's something that needs to be done, man, if you weren't privileged enough to have it done when you were a baby, you really need to have it done, because you're not even supposed to celebrate Passover or anything without having it done, okay? But anyway, so that was talking about lepers. And like I said, they would begin a new life. They'd have a new beginning as a clean person, right? But they had to go through this ritual first. They had to go through this time period. What about Leviticus 15 and 29?
Leviticus 15 and 29. And on the 8th day she shall take unto her 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and bring them unto the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation.
All right. So who are we talking about here? We're talking about a woman who is undergoing nidah, right? Or her monthly cycle. Again, she has undergone a type of death, right? The shedding of those cells, she's undergone a type of death. She has to take a bath, and there's certain things that she had to do in order for her to begin the next, the next part of her life, the next phase, right? So, these are all things that we have examples for. Let's go to 2 Peter 2 and 5 and see what it says there. And I realize all of the examples that I've given you so far were all in the Tanakh, but let's see what it says in 2 Peter.
2 Peter 2 and 5. And he spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the wicked.
So not only, see, in Noah, the eighth person, what happened? The earth was repopulated again, right?
Right.
Or replenished, as it were. So the concept is there. In the New Testament time, they were still doing people circumcisions on the eighth day. All right, they're still talking about Noah and how there were only 8 souls. So the number 8 is very important. Okay, because each one of these things, circumcision, the lepers, the consecration of the priests, nidah, the amount of people in the ark, and there's several other examples. We could go on and on, but every one of these things is tied to the number 8 again, which has to do with new beginnings, new steps, the next phase in life, new things and new places that he wants to take us. Okay, so then look for that pattern. We've talked about 1,000 million times about how patterns are important in the scriptures. So when you want to see, so when you look at something and you read it, pay attention to the days or the amount of time, because again, that will show you some that'll show you some extra meaning that you can glean from there. Let's look at verses 3 and 4 of chapter 9, please.
And speak to the children of Israel, saying, take a male goat as a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both a year old, perfect ones as a burnt offering, and a bull and a ram as peace offerings to slaughter before Yahweh, and a grain offering mixed with oil. For today Yahweh shall appear to you.
Okay, so he says here that we're supposed to take a sin offering, right, and burn it. All right. So and we're going to talk about it here in a little bit, but what's important to realize here is 2 things, especially that number 1, right, the sin offering, before any other offering you brought, the sin offering was what? It was first, right? The sin offering was first. Okay. And you've got to make that sin sacrifice. You've got to make that offering, that sacrifice, that thing you got to make that before you can do anything else, before you can move any further, before you can move on to any other of the offerings, or even the free will or the Thanksgiving. You can't do any of that until you get the sin offering out of the way. That's got to be first. Let's go to Matthew 5, verses 21 through 24, please.
Matthew 5, 21 through 24. Ye have heard it said that it was said by them of old, thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Racha, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave it there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift.
So see, if there's the example is that if there's something there that's standing in the way, it doesn't matter what your gift is, right? What you've brought, it's not going to be acceptable, because you got to make that, you got to smooth that over. You've got to bury the hatchet, so to speak. You've got to get what's offending out of the way before the other can happen. And the thing is, too, that we have to remember that sacrifice that you bring, the scriptures say that they've got to be spotless, right? They got to be without blemish. They got to be perfect, all right? They have to be complete. So the sacrifice that you make needs to be complete. Um, there's a story that I've told several people about people that when we, years and years ago, and you'd see them run to the altar and they put it down on the altar. Boy, but then when they when they leave from the altar, go back to their seat, they pick it right back up, put it back in their shirt pocket. Whatever that, what that was, what they was coming to get rid of. So that's not a complete sacrifice. And the thing is too that in order for your sacrifice to be accepted, it had to be what? Perfect, right? We know that there was only one perfect, complete sacrifice, one spotless, innocent sacrifice. We know that. And that's why he had to die. Okay, because we couldn't do it ourselves, right? Can any of us, Rebbe, can any of us go and oh, well, I'm gonna lay down my life for this person here? No, because Scripture said that we've all sinned and come short of the glory. So there's no way that we can do it, right? That's right. And let's go to verse 7, chapter 9, please.
And Moshe said to Aharon, go to the altar and prepare your sin offering and your burnt offering, and make atonement for yourselves and for the people, and make the offering of the people, and make atonement for them as Yahweh has commanded.
All right. So again, to further that point, you got to do your own sacrifice, right? There was one perfect sacrifice for all of us, but the things that we struggle with, we have to give those things up ourselves. Let's see what Matthew 6:33 says. 6:33.
All right, Matthew 6, verse 33. But seek ye first the kingdom of Elohim and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you.
So when we make those sacrifices, when we get that stuff, when we get that taken care of, right? When we do that first, when we seek him first, all right, when we do that, then we can be about our Father's business.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to get everything, we got to get it all under the blood first before we can do anything. Because like I said, Scripture say there's a way that seems right to man, right? But the end thereof is death. So when if we let him have it and let him have it completely, then it will be taken care of. But when we hold on to it, it's not gonna be right. Let's see what verses 8 through 10 say, please.
So Aharon came near the altar and slaughtered the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. And the sons of Aharon brought the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the altar, and poured the blood at the base of the altar. And the fat and the kidneys and the appendage on the liver of the sin offering he burned on the altar, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe.
All right. So here's the thing that we need to remember. Sounds pretty gross, all this stuff they had to do. I couldn't do it. I'm really, really happy that I was not a Levite, because I can't do that. I'm too tenderhearted to do all that stuff. But as gross as it sounds, it had to be done exactly the way that Yahweh commanded. Because would that sacrifice be acceptable if it was done any other way? No. Okay. And this is how he expects things to be done. Because we know that everything in this word, everything in this tabernacle, everything from the sin offerings to the Thanksgiving offerings to how it was done, the colors, all of that stuff, every bit of it points to his son. And if we bring an imperfect sacrifice or a blemish sacrifice, or if we do it the wrong way, then what does it do? It presents an imperfect picture of his son. And we know from several examples that he's not going to put up with that. All right. He wants that image perfect. Another thing on the side here, in verse 10, it talks about the fat, the kidneys, and the liver and all that stuff. Y'all don't eat that stuff. Okay. Even though it may come from a clean animal, but don't eat that because those are the ways that it filters toxins and poisons and all that junk out of it. Don't eat that. Okay. Um, you should be able to look at it and know you ain't supposed to eat it. But like I said, we're not supposed to eat that stuff. I know a lot of people like it, but exactly. I was just going to say that, that's the reason why he took it, because we're not supposed to eat that stuff. That's not meant for us. Okay. Um, so anyway, like I said, if you're eating livers and brains and all that stuff, quit doing that, because that's just A, it's nasty, and stop being nasty, right? A, it's nasty, and B, it's not meant for you. It's not good for you. Even if it's from a clean animal, it's not good for you. Let's take a look at verse 11, please.
And the flesh and the skin he burned with fire outside the camp.
Okay, so this is a very important thing to remember. Okay. So the flesh and the hide and the dung and we're talking about a sin offering, right? So all of that stuff that pertained to the sin offering was burnt where? Outside. Just the organs and the fat and all that stuff was put on the altar, but the rest of it was burnt outside the camp. All right. Let's go to Exodus 29 and 14, please.
Exodus 29, verse 14. But the flesh of the bullock and his skin and his dung shalt thou burn with fire outside the camp. It is a sin offering.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. The sin, all of it, that whole thing, except for those organs and the fat, the rest of that stuff was outside the camp because it was a sin offering. And we know that there's not supposed to be what? There's no sin in the camp. Let's go to Numbers 19 and 9.
All right. Numbers 19, verse 9. And a man that is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and lay them without the camp in a clean place. And it shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Israel for a water of separation, is a purification for sin.
Okay, so again, a purification for sin, right? That was to be taken by a clean person. And those ashes were what? They were outside the camp, taken to a clean place outside the camp. That's the thing. There's always going to be a place that he sets aside for his people. Let's go to Deuteronomy 23, verses 12 through 14.
Deuteronomy 23, and that's 12 through 14. Thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whither thou shalt go forth abroad, and thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon, and it shall be when thou wilt ease thyself abroad, thou shalt dig therewith, and shalt turn back and cover that which cometh from thee. For Yahweh thy Elohim walketh in the midst of thy camp to deliver thee, and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thou camp be holy, that he see no unclean thing in thee, and turn away from thee.
So that's what we're saying. If there's uncleanness in the camp, if these guys was digging holes and doing their thing, if there was uncleanness in the camp, then Yahweh couldn't walk through it, right? That's why, we've said this, I know y'all heard me say it 1,000 times, but that's why this earth is going to have to be burned up and basically kind of remade, because the New Jerusalem can't come down on this earth as it is. It can't do it, right? It's too holy. It cannot do it. So again, he's not going to be walking through the camp if there's landmines everywhere. To put it that way, you know what I mean? But like I said, he don't want that. It's just like what he said: cover yourself, so that the shame of your nakedness be not seen. Put on some linen breeches, because I don't want to see it. Right? He don't want to see all that stuff. So again, there's no sin in the camp, because the camp is holy, and he's not going to come walking through there if there is. Let's go to Hebrews 13, verses 11 through 14.
All right. Hebrews 13, 11 through 14. For the bodies of those beasts whose blood is brought into the sanctuary by the high priest for sin are burned without the camp. Wherefore Yahushua also, that he might sanctify the people with his own blood, suffered without the gate. Let us go forth therefore unto him without the camp, bearing his reproach. For here have we no continuing city, but we seek one to come.
So Shaul's telling us that in order for Yahushua to have been our perfect, spotless offering, right? Our sin offering, it had to be outside the camp, right? Because that's the pattern. If pattern wasn't important, I know, like I said, Rebbe talks about pattern all the time. And if pattern was not, and I mean, it's an incredibly powerful tool, right? If you can see the patterns, then you can understand the scriptures. But the thing is, like I said, in order for him to be the sin offering, he had to be sacrificed outside the camp. And he was. He wasn't, he wasn't, he wasn't impaled in the city. It was outside, right? Therefore, proving that even in, even in the New Testament time, that those patterns and those instructions, those guidances, that they're still valid. You know, the Father set things up. That's why he was so adamant about it in the beginning when he was talking to Moses about, making sure about this, about how the tabernacle was all set up and everything. All right. He has a pattern. He wants it done that way. He doesn't want it broken. And in order, again, for Yahushua to have been our sacrifice, our sin sacrifice, he had to die outside the camp, outside the city. And he did. You know what I'm saying? So, again, this points right to him. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who still want to deny him, and even Messianic believers call themselves Messianic. How can you be called Messianic if you deny the Messiah? You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make any sense. But they want to deny that he was who he said he was, yet every one of these things that, in order for him to be our sacrifice, they were fulfilled. Not only the place, but the time that he was sacrificed, right? During the Passover season. That's my point. The scriptures are very plain about that. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that he's following the pattern, and this is the pattern that was set down by the Father. He's doing exactly what his Father said, and that's what he told him. He said that I always do those things, right? I do those things that please my Father. And what pleases the Father more than anything? When you obey his word. And that's what Samuel said. He said to obey is better than sacrifice. So better that we obey in the first place, right, than have to come and bring a sacrifice and try to mend fences and make amends and all this kind of stuff. It's better to do it the right way the first time than to have to go back and with your hat in your hand and beg forgiveness for it. So again, we see here how we see the pattern of how he was our spotless lamb. Verses 12 through 16 of chapter 9, please.
And he slaughtered the burnt offering, and the sons of Aaron presented to him the blood which he sprinkled on the altar all around. And they presented the burnt offering to him with its pieces and head, and he burned them on the altar. And he washed the entrails and the legs, and burned them with the burnt offering on the altar. And he brought the people's offering, and took the goat which was slain offering for the people, and slaughtered it, and made it a sin offering like the first one. And he brought the burnt offering and made it according to the right ruling.
Okay, so right here, it tells it he did it this way. He, he took this part and this head and washed the legs and did all of this stuff. We don't understand it, right? That's part of it being a hook. We don't understand it. But the important thing was that he did it according to what was told, what was told to him. It was done the way it was supposed to be done. Because if not, we come right back around to where we were just a few verses ago. If it's not done his way, it gives an improper image, an improper picture of his son. And we know how he feels about that, right? All right. We know that he does. Ask Moses how he feels about it. All right. Because he struck the rock twice instead of speaking to it, all the things that he went through, all the hardships, all the things that because he didn't do what was right, at least he got to see the promised land, but he didn't get to enter into it. And in my mind, thinking with my human brain, well, if anybody deserved to go in, it was him, but I don't have the mind of Yahweh. Right? Again, the scriptures say that all of these things serve as examples to us of what we should do, that we shouldn't repeat the things that they did. Because what? Because they fell short, right? So we need to make sure that we listen to that's what they're all here for. And some of them, yeah, it's hard to understand. Wow, that's kind of messed up. He did all this stuff and he still couldn't go. Well, who am I to argue with the Father's ruling? He's always righteous. He's always just. But the thing is, he let him see it. So again, I've said for a long time that even in the Father's judgment, especially concerning his people, right? And we've seen it in folks that weren't his, but especially concerning his people, even in judgment, there's always still a measure of mercy involved. It's not as bad as it could have been. It's kind of like, the example that Dad's given before. You go in there, you go see the judge, right? And he said, well, look, I should give you 50 years for whatever. Okay, I'm not a lawyer. I can't. But I should give you 50 years. But based on, first offense, this and that, there are all kinds of mitigating circumstances. Instead of giving you 50 years, I'm going to give you 15. Again, I'm just throwing that out there just to try and prove a point. But the thing is, there's always, even in his judgment, the punishment is going to fit the crime. You know what I'm saying? And he couldn't let him go in and reap all the benefits because he had presented an improper picture of his son. And again, we know he's not going to put up with that. Right? So, right there, we got to know that if he says to do it, we got to do it that way. Pretty simple. Verses 19 and 20, please.
And the fat from the bull and the ram and the fat tail and the covering and the kidneys and the appendage on the liver, and they placed the fat on the breast, and he burned the fat on the altar.
All right, so he's pretty adamant about all of this fat, what we're supposed to do with it.
Yes.
Right? I'm going to tell you that what we're supposed to do with it, or what we're not supposed to do with it, is eat it. Now, one of my grandmothers, bless her heart, she'd eat every piece of fat off of a piece of meat that you put on the plate. All right? She would do it. And it just used to creep me out, but she loved it. I think she'd have rather had that piece of fat than she would have had, or even a piece of gristle. She was that way. She liked the fat. She liked the gristle. That's what she wanted, ma'am. Yeah, exactly. So I've seen it in my life, you know what I mean, in my everyday life. But he's very explicit about this. He doesn't want that stuff eaten. There's a lot of things, a lot of compounds. There are a lot of that we ingest, right? A lot of impurities, a lot of stuff like that we ingest that goes into the fat deposits that are in our bodies. I'm just going to kind of take a step way, way back, but y'all know what a flashback is, right? Yeah, y'all know. You know what I'm saying? Well, LSD can be stored in the fat cells. And later on, when your body breaks those fat cells down, that's what causes a flashback, right? So that right there, your body is storing toxins and impurities, imperfections, chemical substance. It stores all that stuff in the fat. And if it does it in us, it also does it in animals. You know, a body is not that different between a person. I mean, it has systems in place, and it does that. So when you eat that fat, I don't care how much you cook it, when you eat it, you're still there's still a possibility that you're going to take on those toxins and whatever's in there. You know what I mean? So again, he took that so that we didn't have to. He took that stuff, said, I'll accept it to keep it away from you. That's how important you are. That's how privileged we are, that he didn't want us eating that stuff. Now, yes, you have to have a certain amount of healthy fats in your diet, right? But you don't need straight up animal fat, like, lard and tallow and all this stuff. You don't need that stuff. You don't need that stuff. No, well, that's what I'm talking about. Even tallow, though, I mean, you really shouldn't have that stuff either. You know what I mean? Because it's just not good, not healthy for us. Yeah, suet. That's especially bad. That's that stuff that comes. That's that fat that comes off the kidneys. You know what I'm saying? It's just. That's what I'm talking about. You're talking about people talking about eating livers and hearts and kidneys. Oh no, 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 no. That's not for you. Let's look at verse 22, please.
And Aharon then lifted up his hand toward the people and blessed them, and came down from making the sin offering and the burnt offering and the peace offering.
All right, so here's something really, really cool. It says that Aaron came down from doing all this stuff, and then what did he do? He blessed the people. Because look, the sin sacrifice had been made. So then the blessing could come. But before the sin sacrifice is made, the blessing can't come. It won't be there. Right? Because there has to be that reconciliation. All right? So here's the best part about it. Let's go to number 6, 23 through 27. And we're going to see what this blessing consisted of and what it did. This is the most incredible part. This is the best part of it.
Number 6, 23 to 27. Speak unto Aharon and his sons, saying, On this wise shall ye bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahweh bless thee and keep thee. Yahweh make his face to shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee shalom. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them.
So here's the thing. This is what we call the Aaronic benediction. We do it every week, right? Before we leave. And it's a means of putting the Father's name on his children, right? He's claiming you, right? And we know there's tremendous blessing, tremendous power in that name, all right? And that's how they were being blessed, was by Aaron putting that name on them through the blessing that he was pronouncing over them. So, the blessing had nothing to do with the bloodline, had nothing to do with the color of their skin, had nothing to do with, whether they were from this tribe or that tribe. It had nothing to do with any of that. Where the blessing came through was through the name that they served and through the Elohim that they followed. Had nothing to do with all of that other stuff, right? So if somebody tells you, well, you can't be Israelite because your skin ain't a certain color, they lying to you. Can I get an amen on that? All right, they lying to you. All right. If they tell you that you can't be an Israelite because you don't belong to a particular tribe, they lying to you. And that's what I'm saying. The blessing comes from the name, not from whether you from Naphtali or Zebulun or Reuben or whoever. It doesn't matter. None of us know where we come from anyway, right? Scriptures tell us that when we get there, he'll tell us which tribe or which gate to go through. And there ain't no Baptist gate, no Pentecostal gate, and there's no Methodist gate, none of that stuff. Each one of those gates has what? A name of a tribe. And that's who you belong to. And that's where he's going to set you, right? Just say he set the solitary in families, right? He's going to set you where you're supposed to be. And when he does, and when you enter into the joy of your master, you ain't going to be worried about what's going on down here. You ain't going to have time to worry about that. Because once we're in his presence, what's our job? To serve him, to worship him, to praise him. That's what we're going to be concerned about. Right? All that stuff, scriptures say that when we get there, he's going to wipe the tears away from our eyes and we'll not feel that pain anymore. Okay? So all of that stuff that we went through down here, be just like it never happened. Just like it never happened. All right? Verses 23 and 24, please.
And Moshe and Aharon went into the tent of appointment and came out and blessed the people. And the esteem of Yahweh appeared to all the people. And fire came out from before Yahweh and consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. And all the people saw and cried aloud and fell on their faces.
Okay, so it tells us right here that the fire fell. And it did what? Consume the offering. Okay? But when did it fall? Only after everything was put in order. They didn't just take the parts and just chunk them up there anyway, right? You remember when Abraham went to take Isaac up on top of the hill? Said that he put the wood in order. And several times through the Torah, when they're out there in the desert and they're putting the sacrifices in order, right? He's got a certain way he wants it. Put the legs here and then put this on there and then stack the head on top. He's got it a certain way. Okay? So if he's that specific about the sacrifice or the order that he wants it placed in, he's pretty specific about everything. Right? So here's the thing. What do you got to take care of first? You take care of sin first. Then you right the ship, and then you make peace. Because look, what was it? The sin offering first, right? And then what? You had this, the peace offerings, right? So, like I said, you had they were in order. They went in a particular order, right? So that's the thing. And once, until things are done in the proper way, the particular order, then and only then is it going to be to him like nothing ever happened. But the sacrifice for sin has to be there first and foremost. Got to be there. All right. So chapter 10, I'm going to try to move here pretty quick. So chapter 10, verses 1 through 2, it talks about Nadab and Abihu. And we've got two of Aaron's sons, pretty high-ranking guys in the priesthood, but they decide that they can put whatever they want to basically on the altar. Father said, this fire that's on the altar, don't ever let it go out, right? But then it said that they decide that they're going to put some strange fire on there. They're going to put what they think is right on there. And then what happens? It says that the fire comes out and just kills them, right? It burns them up, right? And here's the thing. That's because that fire was from outside of Yahweh. It didn't fit the picture of his son. if the son that talks about him having feet like brass that were burnished in the fire and all that, where is that fire coming from? It's not coming from outside, right? It's the fire of the Father. That's where that's coming from. But he's going to be in that fire, not in one that, take a look. Why wasn't Cain's sacrifice? Why wasn't it acceptable? Because it wasn't the right thing, right? It wasn't what the Father wanted. All right. It wasn't after the manner. All right. And here's the thing. He wants it done his way. We can't save ourselves. If we could, why would Yahushua had to die? If there, and by that same token, if the Torah is done away with, if there is no sin, there's no need to repent. Right? So again, if it's outside of him, it doesn't fit the picture. And if it doesn't fit the picture, it's an improper image of his son. And if it's an improper image of his son, he ain't gonna be happy with it. You think thank you. You think that Yahweh's out there, you think Yahweh's smiling when people are sitting around the Christmas tree and doing all that? No, he ain't. He don't like that. Told them don't do it in Jeremiah. But they think that it's so holy and so righteous. You see what I'm saying? It's not after the picture of his son. I guarantee you that in the 3.5 years of his public ministry, they didn't go anywhere and set up a tree someplace and put silver and gold and stuff on it. They didn't do that. And we shouldn't be doing that either, because it doesn't fit the picture, right? What's it say in John 1:29? Mm-hmm.
All right, John 1 and verse 29. The next day John seeth Yahushua coming unto him and saith, Behold the Lamb of Yahweh, which taketh away the sins of the world.
See, he had a purpose, right? John saw it. Hey, John saw it when he was still in the womb, right? Yep. He knew it. So Elizabeth said he went to kicking up in there. He went to cutting flips and everything else. He knew that there was something special. All right. John saw him, said he saw him far off, and he said, Oh, behold, the Lamb of Yahweh takes away the sin of the world. All right. Again, only he could be that sacrifice, that perfect sacrifice. You can't save yourself. No matter how good your intentions are, no matter how many baloney strings you wearing, no matter what kind of artifacts or ornaments or accoutrement you have on, it ain't gonna make no difference. You can't do it yourself. You can't. Okay, so let's see here. Chapter 10, verses 4 through 5. These are, again, more offerings, right, that were taken where? Outside the camp. There's a very important thing about this outside the camp. That's where he's trying to let us know that that's where sin belongs, is outside the camp. If you're in the camp, you need to be doing things right. The sin is for outside the camp. All right? And this is pretty, this deal with Nadab and Abihu, this is a pretty harsh lesson here. All right. So let's see here. Verse 6. And Moses said, This is the thing that Yahweh commanded that you should do, and the glory of Yahweh shall appear unto you. Okay, but it tells us later. Well, let's take a look at what's he tell him? What's the admonishment here in verse 9 through 11? Don't get drunk. He's not against you enjoying yourself. He's not against you like, some folks teach, oh, you have to abstain from alcohol completely. No, that's not true. Okay. but you don't need to be. Scripture say it's not for princes and strong men to do what? To mix wine in the cup and mix strong drink. All right, that's not for us to do. Sure, you can enjoy yourself, but you need to be careful. You got to toe a line there. Enjoy yourself, but don't go over the edge. All right. And what's the reason? Because the reason why he tells him, that princes and priests and kings that they shouldn't mix strong drink and all this stuff is because it impairs our ability to make sound judgments, and it we make mistakes, and it may not be intentional, right? But the thing is, we still make mistakes, and there's fallout from those mistakes. So again, we have to pay attention to what we're doing. Verses 12 through 15 talks about the, this part was given to the priest. Uh, that he was, that they were given the heave breasts and the wave offering and or the wave offering and the heave shoulder. Sorry, I always get those two mixed up. All right, but that's given to them because that's their due. That's their payment, I suppose, because they didn't have, you know, ma'am. Yeah, it's their room and board basically. Okay, but the care of the priesthood was placed on the shoulders of everybody else. Okay, and so again, it speaks to us, loving our neighbor as ourselves. It speaks to us, opening our hand wide to our brother that's in need. We're not supposed to be stingy. That's what that evil eye is all about, right? It ain't like the whammy hoodoo. You know what I'm saying? What it is it's saying don't be stingy, because whoever lends to the poor lends to who? To Yahweh. All right. He who lendeth to the poor lends to Yahweh. So don't worry about it. He's going to repay it. All right. Let's see here. So 16 through 20. Okay. So this is where it talks about Moses went and looked at the goat for the sin offering, and it was all burned up, right? And he got mad with Aaron. And he said, look, you guys were supposed to eat this thing. This is the most holy thing. You were supposed to do this and you didn't. And Moses told him, or Aaron told him, what did he say? He said, if I had eaten the sin offering today, should it have been accepted in the sight of Yahweh? All right. Because he was heavy of heart because of what had just happened. And the thing is that if it tells us this set of verses right here used to confuse me when I was a kid. I was a lot younger. It used to really confuse me because it was like, well, he just had his family die. Why is he mad at him? And and then when Aaron answers him, verse 20 says Moses was content with what he heard because he realizes, he's learning. He is learning, right? And honestly, I think it was kind of a test for Aaron, to see whether he was going to be able to make high priest or not. But Aaron basically tells him, look, the blessings or the gifts of Yahweh are meant to be received with thanksgiving and with joy and with happiness and with praise. But right now, my heart is not there. So would it be right? So, we can be sad. We can be sad, yeah. Sometimes we don't feel like. We can be sad and not feel like going to the Abba's house. But we should still be here. Y'all agree with that? All right? We should still be here. All right? To receive what he has for us. And who knows? There may be a word said. There may be a hug come from somebody. There may be somebody there that tells you, hey, Just wanted you to know that I love you today. And that may need, that kind of thing. That may be, let's say, a good word or a soft word. What is it? Uh, no, that's not the one I'm talking about. But it's in due season. A word spoken in due season. That says a word spoken in due season. Okay, that that may be what you need. But if you're not here, you're not going to receive it, right? But now I understand. I'm older, and I'm the I look at the word a little differently. You know what I mean? And I see, because if he had eaten it in his state, all right, it reminds me of what it says in Malachi 1:6-8, right? It says that you call the table of Yahweh what? Contemptible. And if you're not receiving the things of him with joy, then that's what you're doing. You're saying it's not good enough. Does that make sense? You see what I'm trying to tell you? And that's what Aaron was saying. If I had eaten it, if we had eaten it, given where I'm at right now, and given where his brothers are right now, would that have been acceptable to Yah? So again, I think that Moses was really seeing where Aaron was at, because he'd grown a great deal since they left. Since they left Egypt, still make some mistakes, but he was doing what he could. This whole thing is brand new to everybody. So I mean, that's it. We gotta stay, and Dad said a lot of times, we gotta stay teachable. We can't sit up here like, oh, I know everything. I got this all sewed up in a bag. I mean, everything in a bag of chips. I got it all. No, you don't. None of us do. Unfortunately, we're not all going to know everything there is to know until when? Till we back with him and he can explain it to us. Because I guarantee you, I got some questions. I want to know some stuff. And if it's for me to know, he'll tell me. He may tell me, well, that's not for you. And I have to say, okay, yes, sir. Good enough. So chapter 11 mainly deals with food laws. Okay. Now, Leviticus chapter 11 is where we see the first institution of what we can eat, what we're not supposed to eat. And I believe it's in Deuteronomy 14, I think is where the other is, if I'm not mistaken. It's Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14, if I'm not mistaken. But it tells us what can we eat, what are we not supposed to eat. Okay. And it all goes back to one important concept that we spoke about last night, which is what? Clean and unclean. Right? There are clean animals and there are unclean animals. Clean animals were always meant for food. Unclean animals were never meant for food, right? Unclean animals or clean animals, their job is to feed mankind. Unclean animals, their job is to what? Clean the earth. That goes back to eating the fat and the liver and the kidneys and all. That's their job is to eat the garbage, to keep the earth clean, right? And keep disease from running, ma'am. Or the ocean, exactly. Just to keep the earth itself, okay? The planet, to keep it clean. And there are certain things that we were never meant to eat. Pigs, we were never meant to eat. Horses and, camels and sea things. And there's a lot of stuff that we were never meant to eat. People eat down here. They eat rabbits and squirrels and armadillos and possums, and that all has a particular job, and it is not to be eaten. That is not their job. Okay, so let them do their job, which is to clean it. Don't eat them. You're stopping them from doing their job. Let them fulfill their purpose. Verses 32-48, it talks about if a carcass of an animal should fall on something, like a cooking vessel or a or a piece of cloth, or on some seeds that have had water put on them. That extends through verses 39 and 40 as well. But if it's a carcass and it falls on something, what they had to do back in the day was destroy that thing, because there's a possibility that whatever killed that animal, that you would take it in when therefore it was contaminated, right? um like, I'm gonna go get that whatever off the floor over there, and I'm gonna go chew on that for a little while. No, don't do that. That's not what that's for. And here's another thing. He talks in verses 39 and 40 about touching things that have died. Okay. Now we know earlier on the scriptures talk about touching a dead body or the bone of a man or a grave or whatever. Okay. And we're not supposed to do that. But here it talks about in the purpose, or in the confines of it being an animal. Here's the thing. We're not supposed to touch that either. If it dies on its own, right? Or whatever, if it's dead, you're not supposed to touch it. Now, I'm not talking about killing the animal for your food. I'm talking about if you find something if it's sitting on the side of the road, let it go. Don't touch it, sir. Yeah, if you get the roadkill, leave it alone. Don't go pick that up. Yeah, and he did especially talk about things that creep on the earth and stuff like that in this Parsha as well. The snakes and all that kind of stuff, man, leave that stuff alone. Yo.
One thing that people sometimes don't realize, he said, don't touch the carcass. So you have to be careful about products you use, because some of them have things from unclean animals.
Well,
From that, and then if you're slathering it on you, let's say it's that blue emu, for
yeah.
instance. I'll pull that up because that's easy to say. Now you're putting that emu unclean bird, you're slathering on you, and emu is a great carrier, and it drives it into your skin. Well, now it's a mess. Don't use things that have unclean products from unclean animals in them, because it's still touching its carcass.
Well, and your skin is the biggest organ you have. You know what I mean? So when you put that stuff on, you're taking it into yourself. You know what I mean? And that's what he told us not to do. So, like you said,
check the label.
Look at the list. Check the, if you buy a pair of gloves and they're made out of leather, make sure that it's not pig leather. You know what I mean? If it's goat leather, fine. If it's cow leather, fine. But don't go putting on a set of pigskin gloves. Yeah. Right. Just like you say, you can't curse what he's blessed. You can't bless what he's cursed. You know what I'm saying? What you got, sis? I don't. Kim's got the microphone. And the sad part is that 9 times out of 10, they don't even know. It's like the Jello, they don't even know. But they say it's no longer animal. We don't know what kind of bones it is, but it doesn't matter. Because you cook it so long, it quits being an animal. I don't think so. That, yeah. All right. So verses 44 through 45 of chapter 11. All right. For I am Yahweh your Elohim. You shall therefore sanctify yourselves, and you shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall you defile yourselves with any manner of creeping thing that creeps on the earth. For I am Yahweh that brings you up out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. So we have seen that where he says, be ye holy as I am holy, right? Be set apart. Don't be like the nations around you. And he gave them several admonishments to, walk this thing out. Don't be like these people or these people or these people or these people over here. Don't do what they do. Don't do like the heathen does. All right? Because again, he wants us to be like him.
You mean we're not supposed to blend in?
That's what we've been talking about for a long time. We're supposed to kind of stick out, which we do. What's it say in 1 Peter 1 and 16?
First Peter
1
1
16. Mm-hmm.
and 16, because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy.
So see, it's written here in the front of the book, and it's written here way later in the book. So I mean, that's why we teach people to look for patterns, because if you're looking for that, you're going to see it repeated.
Yes, amen.
Right? And that's how you know you're on the right track. That's how you know you're on the right track. Look for the pattern. Dad's got a teaching talking about the 4 P's. Real good stuff. Good things to learn. Help you a whole lot when it comes to trying to understand this book that we're supposed to be living with. And then verse 47, it talks about to make a difference between the clean and the unclean, and between the beasts that may be eaten and the beasts that may not be eaten. Right? What did he say? He says in the scriptures that my people, right, or the priests, that part of their job is to do what? To make a difference between the clean and the unclean, the holy and the unholy. And that they're supposed to do what? Teach it to the people. Not hide it for themselves, but they're supposed to teach it to the people. Yeah, that's why it is important. I wrote in here that pesky clean and unclean thing. It must be important.
Yes, yes.
Because he talks about it so much. And we know, given the pattern in the scripture, if he talks about it twice, right, we talk about two or three witness principle. If he talks about it twice, it's important.
Right.
If he talks about it 3 times, it's real important. If he talks about it 4 times, you better be listening. Well, I'm going to tell you what. He talks about this clean and unclean thing way more than 4 times. Okay, so he must mean it. So anyway, let's do that. Let's continue, to walk in the word. Let's continue to learn from his word. Let's continue to be teachable. Let's continue to make a difference, right? And just because we're not around around other believers, we can slide off and go to the catfish house. You know what I'm saying? Let's not do that, okay? But anyway, that's going to end my little Parsha today. I hope that there was something in it that you could receive, something that you could hold on to. We're